Emily Carter was only 17 when she disappeared.
The strange part wasn't just that she vanished without a trace. It was the way she acted during the last few days before it happened. According to her friends, she stopped sleeping properly. She barely answered messages. In school, she kept looking over her shoulder like somebody was following her. One teacher even said Emily walked out of class in the middle of a lesson after hearing a loud sound outside the window. When her best friend Chloe asked what was wrong, Emily just whispered, "I think they found me again." Nobody understood what she meant. At first, everyone thought she was dealing with stress or anxiety. Emily had always been quiet, but now she looked terrified all the time. Her parents told police she stayed locked inside her room for hours every night researching old government projects and abandoned military sites online. Her search history was filled with strange phrases like underground facilities, human testing rumors, and Cold War bunkers near Black Ridge Forest. Then things became even stranger. 2 nights before she vanished, Emily posted a blurry video on her private social account. The video only lasted 11 seconds. It showed darkness, shaking trees, and heavy breathing. But near the end, a bright white light appeared behind her, between the trees. Not a flashlight, something much stronger. Emily turned the camera for 1 second, and the video ended immediately. By morning, the post had been deleted. Her friends tried asking about it at school, but Emily refused to talk. She looked exhausted, pale, like she hadn't slept in days. One of her classmates later told police that Emily grabbed his arm in the hallway and asked him a terrifying question. If someone was watching you every night, how would you prove it? That same evening, Emily called Chloe crying. Not normal crying either. She sounded completely broken. Her voice kept shaking like she could barely breathe. Chloe asked where she was, but Emily refused to answer directly. She only said she was close to the trees, and that she finally understood why her grandfather used to warn her never to go near Black Ridge Forest after dark. Then Emily suddenly went silent for almost 20 seconds. Chloe kept asking if she was okay. When Emily finally spoke again, her voice was quieter. Terrified. They're here. That. Call ended instantly. That was the last time any of her friends heard from her. Her parents reported her missing the next morning. Police searched the town for days. Volunteers checked nearby roads, hiking trails, rivers, and abandoned buildings. Search dogs picked up her scent near the edge of Black Ridge Forest, but lost it almost. Immediately near an old service road that supposedly hadn't been used in over 30 years. No evidence, no footprints, no phone activity. It was like Emily simply disappeared into thin air. Then, 3 days later, something happened that changed everything. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Emily's phone suddenly sent a voice message to Chloe. Just one message. No text, no explanation. When Chloe opened it, she nearly dropped her phone. Emily sounded terrified beyond words. Her breathing was uneven, and there was a strange metallic echo in the background, like she was inside a huge empty room underground. Somewhere far behind her, an alarm was beeping slowly. Emily whispered, "If you get this, don't trust anybody." Then there was a loud banging sound. Metal hitting metal. Emily started crying softly before whispering something even worse. "They found me. Don't let them take me back." The audio cut off after that. Police immediately traced the signal location, but the coordinates made no sense. According to official maps, the phone ping came from deep inside restricted forest land, where absolutely nothing was supposed to exist. No buildings, no roads, no military property, nothing at all. Authorities blamed the signal on a tower error. They claimed the location data was corrupted. But Chloe didn't believe them. Neither did we. Because when we listened closely to the voice message again later that night, we noticed something disturbing hidden underneath Emily's crying. A second voice, very faint. A man calmly saying, "She shouldn't have left Sector 12. The second we heard that sentence, every hair on my arm stood up. Sector 12? There was no Sector 12. There was no Sector 12 anywhere near our town. We searched online for hours, but found almost nothing. Every result connected to old military archives, deleted documents, or forums filled with conspiracy theories. Most people laughed at the stories, but one post caught our attention immediately. A retired worker claimed there used to be a hidden, underground military facility somewhere beneath Black Ridge Forest during the Cold War. According to him, the bunker wasn't built for war. It was built for experiments. Psychological experiments. Human behavior studies. Isolation testing. The post ended with one final sentence before the account disappeared completely. They never shut the bunker down. They only stopped talking about it. The GPS location from Emily's phone looked impossible. At first, we thought it had to be fake. Maybe someone cloned her phone or sent the signal from somewhere else to confuse people. But the more we looked into it, the stranger it became. The coordinates pointed directly into the center of Black Ridge Forest, nearly 15 miles past the old ranger station, where the public trails ended. Nobody went that deep anymore, not even hunters. There were stories about that part of the forest. People claimed compasses stopped working there. Hikers talked about hearing strange mechanical sounds underground late at night. One man even swore he saw floodlights turning on between the trees during a storm back in 2009. Most locals ignored the stories because Black Ridge already had a reputation for creepy rumors. But after Emily disappeared, Ho's stories suddenly felt different, more real. Chloe wanted to go immediately. I told her it was a terrible idea. The police already searched the area once and found nothing. If trained teams with dogs and drones couldn't locate Emily, what chance did we have? But Chloe refused to let it go. She kept replaying the voice message over and over, like she was trying to hear something new each time. Then she noticed a detail none of us caught before. In the background of the recording, underneath the alarm sound, there was another noise repeating every few seconds. A low metallic hum, rhythmic, almost like a giant machine running underground. Chloe froze after hearing it. My grandfather used to work maintenance near Black Ridge, she said quietly. He told me there were generators hidden underground out there. Nobody spoke for a second, because generators meant power, and power meant somebody was still using the place. The next morning, 4 of us drove toward the forest before sunrise. Chloe came with us, along with my cousin Daniel and our friend Marcus, who brought his camera equipment because he wanted to document everything. At the time, it honestly felt more like an urban exploration trip than a rescue mission. We were nervous, but none of us truly believed we'd find anything dangerous. That feeling disappeared the second we arrived. The forest looked wrong. Not scary in the normal horror movie way. It just felt dead. The deeper we walked past the ranger station, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects. Even the wind sounded muted between the trees. The air itself felt heavy like a storm was coming, even though the sky was completely clear. Marcus tried joking around at first, but after about 20 minutes, he stopped talking too. Every few minutes, Chloe checked Emily's last coordinates on her phone. The signal pointed farther north, deeper into the woods, where the trees grew so thick, they blocked most of the sunlight. Old rusted fences started appearing between the trees, half covered in vines and moss. Some sections had warning signs hanging crooked from broken posts. Most of the writing had faded away, but one sign still had a single word visible in red letters. Authorized. That was it. No explanation. No company name. Nothing else. Daniel noticed something strange near the ground a little later. Tire tracks. Fresh ones. That made no sense. There were no roads anywhere nearby. Yet deep grooves, cut through the mud, like heavy vehicles, passed through recently. Not old tracks either. Fresh enough that water still filled the edges from rain 2 nights earlier. Chloe looked genuinely scared after seeing them. We're not alone out here, she whispered. We kept following the tracks anyway. About an hour later, Marcus suddenly stopped walking and pointed ahead without saying a word. At first, I couldn't see what he was staring at. Then I noticed it hidden between the trees. A tall metal pole. It looked ancient, covered in rust and dirt, but attached near the top was a small black security camera, aimed directly at the path we were walking on. The camera was moving, slowly turning, watching us. Marcus immediately lifted his own camera to record it, but the second he pressed record, His screen glitched violently with static. The battery indicator dropped from 70% to 3% instantly, before the camera shut off completely. None of us laughed anymore after that. Daniel walked closer to inspect the pole and found a faded number painted near the bottom. S12. The same number. From Emily's voice message. Sector 12. My stomach dropped the second I saw it. Chloe started panicking, saying we needed to leave immediately. But before anyone could answer, a loud metallic sound echoed somewhere far ahead of us. Not an animal. A door. Huge. Heavy. Mechanical. The sound rolled through the forest like thunder underground. Every one of us heard it clearly. Then came another noise. A faint buzzing hum. Electricity. Without even speaking, we started moving toward it. Slowly. Carefully. The trees became thinner after a few minutes, opening into a clearing hidden deep inside the forest. And right in the center of it was something none of us were prepared to see. A massive concrete structure buried into the earth. Most of it sat underground, hidden beneath dirt and overgrown roots. But part of the entrance remained exposed. Thick steel doors stood open just enough to reveal darkness below. Old military symbols were painted across the walls, almost completely faded with age. Large vents stuck out from the ground nearby, releasing warm air into the cold forest atmosphere. The bunker was still active. That was the terrifying part. We could hear machinery running somewhere below us. Lights flickered faintly inside the entrance tunnel. Someone had power down there. Somebody maintained this place. Then Chloe noticed something near the bunker doorway. A backpack. Emily's backpack, covered in dirt, torn on one side, and sitting right beside it was her phone, still warm. None of us touched the phone at first. We just stood there, staring at it beside Emily's backpack, while the warm air from the bunker vents drifted around us. The entire clearing felt unnatural. Too quiet, too still. Even the trees around the bunker looked dead, their branches twisted and colorless like something underground poisoned the soil. Years ago, Marcus finally broke the silence. She was here recently. He was right. The phone screen was still glowing faintly. There were scratches across the back, like it had been dropped while running. One corner was cracked, and mud covered most of it, but it was definitely Emily's. Chloe picked it up carefully with shaking hands. The battery showed 1%. Before anyone could say anything else, the screen suddenly lit up by itself. A notification appeared. No service. Then, almost immediately after that, another me. Sage flashed across the screen for less than 2 seconds. Run. That was it. One word. Then the phone died. Completely. Chloe nearly dropped it. Daniel kept saying someone had to be messing with us, but his voice didn't sound convincing anymore. Even he looked pale standing near the bunker entrance. The steel doors were massive, thick enough to survive explosions. Rust covered most of the outside, but fresh scratch marks ran along the edges, like the doors had been opened recently. And deep inside the darkness below, we could hear movement. Not clearly, just distant sounds echoing upward through the underground halls, metallic clanging, a low mechanical hum. Somewhere far below, something heavy slammed shut. Marcus whispered, "We should leave." Honestly, I wanted to. Every instinct in my body screamed that we shouldn't go inside. But Chloe refused. She kept staring down into the darkness, holding Emily's dead phone against her chest. "She came here for a reason," she said quietly. "And if she's still alive..." Nobody answered her. Because the truth was obvious now. Emily really had been here. The bunker wasn't abandoned, and whatever existed underneath us was still operating after all these years. Daniel pulled out his flashlight first and stepped closer to the entrance tunnel. The beam revealed concrete stairs leading underground, disappearing into darkness after about 20 feet. Old yellow emergency lights flickered weakly along the walls. Some worked, most didn't. Military warning symbols were painted everywhere. Biohazard. Authorized personnel only. Sector access restricted. Most of the paint had faded, but the messages were still readable. Marcus started recording again, using a backup camera, although he kept glancing nervously at the tree line behind us, like he expected someone to appear at any moment. Honestly, I kept doing the same thing. It felt impossible to relax out there. The entire clearing gave off this horrible feeling, that we were being observed from somewhere nearby. Then Daniel noticed something on the bunker wall near the entrance. Deep claw marks. At least 6 long scratches carved directly into solid steel. Not random damage either. The marks looked deliberate, violent, like someone tried desperately to get out. Chloe stared at the scratches for several seconds before quietly saying, "Those weren't made from outside." Nobody responded to T. Hat. We slowly started descending the stairs. The temperature dropped immediately. Warm air from the vents disappeared behind us, replaced by cold, damp air, carrying the smell of rust, mold, and something chemical hidden underneath it all. Every footstep echoed loudly through the tunnel. The sound made the bunker feel endless, like the halls stretched miles underground. About halfway down, we found another sign bolted into the wall. Black Ridge Research Facility, property of the U.S. Defense Program. Below that, someone had scratched words directly into the metal with something sharp. They lied to us. The deeper we went, the stranger things became. The bunker still had electricity, but barely. Hallway lights flickered randomly overhead, buzzing constantly. Some corridors vanished into complete darkness, while others glowed dimly red from emergency lighting. Old pipes lined the ceilings, dripping water onto the floor below. Every sound echoed forever down the empty halls. At first, it looked abandoned. Then we found fresh footprints. Not ours. Wet, muddy prints leading deeper into the facility. Marcus crouched beside them with his flashlight. "These are recent," he whispered. "Like real." Recent. The footprints looked small, possibly Emily's. We followed them through a narrow corridor, filled with old storage crates and broken equipment. Most of the labels were impossible to read after years underground, but a few still had faded military codes stamped across the sides. One crate sat open near the wall, completely empty except for torn restraints hanging inside. That was the first moment I truly felt afraid. Not nervous, not unsettled, afraid, because this place wasn't just some forgotten bunker anymore. It felt like evidence, like somebody abandoned it in a hurry after doing something terrible down here. Then Marcus froze suddenly and pointed his flashlight toward the wall ahead of us. Children's drawings, dozens of them, taped across the concrete in uneven rows. Most were faded with age, but you could still see smiling stick figures, forests, houses, and strange black circles underground. Some drawings showed people standing beneath bright white lights. Others showed tall, shadowy figures with no faces. One drawing made Chloe cover her mouth instantly. It showed a little girl standing inside a cage underground. Above her, written in messy red crayon, were the woe. RDS. They watch us sleep. Daniel quietly muttered, "What the hell happened here?" Nobody had an answer. Then the lights went out, completely. Darkness swallowed the hallway instantly. Marcus cursed under his breath, while all of us turned on our flashlights at the same time. The beam shook badly in our hands now. For a few seconds, the bunker became completely silent. Too silent. Then somewhere deep in the darkness ahead of us, a woman screamed. Not loud, far away, but absolutely real. The scream echoed through the bunker for only a few seconds, but it felt long enough to stop all of us from breathing. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The sound came from somewhere deep below us, far beyond the hallway with the children's drawings. It wasn't loud like someone calling for help. It sounded distant, weak, almost exhausted. But there was something horrifying about it because it sounded human, real. Chloe immediately whispered, "Emily." Daniel grabbed her arm before she could run forward. "Wait!" His voice shook badly now. Even Marcus looked terrified, holding the camera flashlight toward the darkness ahead. The beam barely reached 10 feet before disappearing into blackness. Then the bunker left. Lights suddenly flickered back on. Red emergency lights glowed across the hallway, bathing everything in a dim blood-colored haze. The drawings on the walls looked even worse now. The smiling stick figures almost seemed distorted under the red light. Some of the paper edges moved slightly from cooled air drifting through the corridors underground. That's when we heard the announcement. A woman's voice crackled through hidden speakers somewhere above us. Calm, mechanical, emotionless. Sector 12 lockdown remains active. Static interrupted the message for a second. Then the voice continued. Then the voice continued. All personnel must report unauthorized movement immediately. Marcus slowly looked around. Did that say unauthorized movement? Before anyone answered, another sound echoed nearby. Footsteps. Fast. Running somewhere through the hallways ahead of us. We instantly killed our flashlight beams and backed against the wall. The footsteps moved quickly through a nearby corridor, followed by the metallic slam of a heavy door, somewhere deeper inside the bunker. Then silence returned again. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. Somebody else was down there with us. And judging by those footsteps, they already knew we were inside. Daniel quietly whispered that we needed to leave immediately, but Chloe refused again. She kept staring toward the direction of the scream, like she was trying to convince herself Emily was still alive, somewhere underground. Then Marcus noticed a nearby security room with shattered glass windows. Maybe there's a map inside, he whispered. We moved carefully toward it, trying not to make noise. The room looked abandoned at first glance. But the second we stepped inside, we realized somebody had been there recently. Dust across the desks was disturbed. Several computer monitors still glowed faintly with static. Coffee cups sat near one console. One of them tipped over with dark liquid dried across the desk. Someone had been working there not long ago. Marcus aimed his flashlight toward the back wall, and all of us froze again. Hundreds of photographs, pinned everywhere. Most showed people. Men, women, children. Some looked terrified. Others appeared drugged or confused. Many photos had dates written underneath them, stretching across decades. 1989, 1997, 2003, 2011. Some people in the pictures were marked with red stamps reading, "Transferred non-compliant returned." Chloe suddenly pointed toward one photograph near the center wall. Emily. The picture looked recent, maybe taken only days earlier. Emily stood inside a gray room, staring directly into the camera, with dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted and terrified. Underneath the picture, somebody had written, "Subject 14B recovered after escape attempt." I felt sick reading it. Recovered? Escape attempt. That meant Emily hadn't accidentally found this place. She'd already been inside before she disappeared. Marcus started recording everything rapidly, while Daniel searched through the desks for anything useful. Most of the papers were shredded or damaged, but one file cabinet near the corner still contained documents. Old experiment reports, psychological evaluations, medical charts. One paper had a title stamped across the top in bold black letters. Behavioral Isolation Program Sector 12. Daniel skimmed through the pages with growing panic on his face. These people were experimenting on civilians, he whispered. Teenagers too. Chloe grabbed another folder and opened it. Inside were handwritten interviews from subjects describing hallucinations. NS, memory loss, paranoia, and hearing voices underground. One sentence repeated again and again throughout multiple reports. They become afraid of the dark after prolonged exposure. The more we read, the worse it got. According to the files, the bunker originally operated during the Cold War, but the experiments continued long after the facility was supposedly abandoned. The subjects were isolated underground for weeks at a time, while researchers monitored fear responses and psychological breakdowns. Some reports mentioned audio conditioning and sleep manipulation. Others referenced something called the observation program. Nobody understood what that meant. Then, Marcus accidentally knocked over a stack of folders near the desk. Papers scattered across the floor, revealing something hidden underneath. A small television monitor, still powered on. Static flickered across the screen for several seconds before the image suddenly changed. Security camera footage, live footage. We all stepped closer, instantly. The screen showed another hallway somewhere else inside the bunker. Flickering lights. Empty corridors. More steel doors. Then the camera angle shifted automatically to another. The room. And there she was. Emily. She was sitting on the floor inside a small white room, hugging her knees against her chest. Her face looked pale and exhausted. Dark bruises circled beneath her eyes like she hadn't slept in days. She kept staring toward the corner of the room, whispering something over and over to herself. Chloe nearly started crying. Emily! Obviously, Emily couldn't hear us through the monitor. But the second Chloe spoke, Emily suddenly lifted her head sharply toward the camera, as if she heard her. Then Emily's expression changed completely. Pure fear. She started shaking her head violently at the camera, while backing away toward the wall. Her lips formed the same word again and again. No. Then the screen cut to black. Every monitor in the room instantly shut off at the same time. A loud metallic locking sound echoed somewhere nearby. Then the woman's voice returned through the speakers. Security breach detected in Sector 12. Another pause. Then slowly, all exits are now sealed. The second the voice announced the exits were sealed, panic hit all of us at once. Daniel rushed to the security room door and tried pulling it open harder, but it wouldn't. Harder, but it wouldn't. Move. Somewhere inside the bunker, huge metal locks had activated. We could hear them echoing through the walls, one after another. Heavy, mechanical, final. Marcus kept muttering, "No, no, no," while checking his camera battery again. The screen flickered with static every few seconds now. Whatever powered this place was interfering with almost everything electronic. Chloe stood frozen near the dead monitors, staring at the black screen where Emily had just appeared. Her face looked pale under the red emergency lights. She looked terrified of the camera. Chloe whispered, "Not of us." Before anybody could respond, the overhead speakers crackled again. But this time, it wasn't the calm robotic woman speaking. It sounded like a real person. A man, older, weak, breathing. "If you're hearing this, do not go below level 3. Static swallowed part of the message. They're not conducting experiments anymore." A loud burst of interference screamed through the speaker system. Then silence. Daniel slowly turned toward us. What does that even mean? Nobody answered, because deep down, none of us wanted to know. Then the lights flickered again. For half a second, the entire room went dark. And during that half second, I swear someone was standing outside the security room window. Tall, motionless, watching us. The lights came back instantly, but the hallway outside was empty again. Marcus saw it too. I could tell by the way his face changed. He immediately aimed the camera toward the hallway, but there was nothing there except the flickering red lights and long shadows stretching across the floor. Then came the sound. A soft, scraping noise. Metal dragging slowly against concrete. Somewhere nearby. Closer this time. Daniel grabbed a rusted flashlight from the desk, like it was a weapon, even though it probably wouldn't help against anything. Chloe finally snapped out of her shock and started searching through the security computer terminals. Surprisingly, one monitor still worked. Static rolled across the screen, while old security menus blinked weakly underneath. She clicked through different camera feeds rapidly. Most cameras showed empty hallways. Others were completely dead. But one feed suddenly appeared from a lower level underground. The room on screen looked massive, circular, almost like an underground laboratory mixed with a prison. Large observation windows surrounded the center chamber, though most of the glass was shattered. Old medical beds sat overturned across the floor. Restraints hung from the walls, and written across the center floor in huge black letters was one sentence: "We were never alone down here." Marcus zoomed the camera toward the monitor, while Daniel stared at another part of the screen. "There," he whispered. At first, I didn't notice it. Then something moved near the far corner of the room. A person. No, not moving normally. Crawling, slowly dragging themselves across the floor before disappearing behind one of the overturned beds. The security footage was grainy, but the movement looked wrong. Somehow. Jerky, unnatural. Chloe backed away from the monitor immediately. "That's not Emily." The feed suddenly cut into static again. Then another camera activated automatically by itself. This one showed a long hallway somewhere close to our location, empty at first. Then, after a few seconds, someone stepped into frame. A man wearing a faded military uniform. He looked old, extremely old, thin gray hair, hollow face. One side of his neck covered in dark stains that looked almost brown. Arnid. He wasn't walking normally either, more like stumbling slowly while staring directly into the camera lens. Then he stopped moving completely. The speaker system crackled overhead again. "Sector 12 personnel must report containment failure immediately." The old man on the screen suddenly smiled. Not a normal smile either. Wide, forced. Like he forgot how humans were supposed to smile naturally. Then all the monitors shut off again. Marcus cursed under his breath. We need to get out now. But Daniel was already trying another door leading deeper into the bunker. Unlike the main exit, this one slid open halfway with a loud, grinding sound. Cold air drifted through from the darkness beyond. None of us wanted to go farther underground, but we also knew staying trapped inside, that security room, wasn't safe either, especially after seeing someone, or something, watching us from the hallway. So we moved deeper. The lower levels looked completely different from the upper bunker corridors. Cleaner somehow, more organized. The walls were painted white, beneath years of dirt and stains. Old hospital equipment lined certain hallways. Wheelchairs sat abandoned near locked room. Some doors had small reinforced windows, though many were shattered from the inside. And everywhere we looked, there were messages written on the walls. Don't fall asleep, they hear everything IT pretends to be human. Some messages looked decades old. Others seemed fresh enough to have been written recently. Marcus kept filming quietly, while Chloe called Emily's name every few minutes. Her voice echoed through the underground halls in a way that made my skin crawl. The bunker seemed to swallow sound strangely. Sometimes echoes returned normally. Other times, they didn't. At one point, Chloe whispered, "Emily," and from somewhere far behind us, a voice whispered back, "Emily." We all froze instantly. Daniel spun around with the flashlight beam shaking violently in his hand, but the hallway behind us was empty, completely empty. Marcus whispered, "Did you guys hear that?" Nobody answered because the fear on all our faces already said enough. Then we reached another large steel door, marked Level 3, authorized access only. The door was slightly open. Inside, faint white light spilled across the hallway floor. We carefully stepped closer and immediately heard voices call. Ming from within. Not recordings. Real voices. People talking quietly. One sounded like a woman crying. Another sounded calm, almost comforting. Then we heard Emily's voice clearly for the first time since entering the bunker. "They followed me here," she whispered. "I told you they would." Chloe rushed toward the doorway instantly, before any of us could stop her. The room beyond looked like some kind of underground dormitory. Small beds lined the walls. Old lamps flickered overhead. Several people sat motionless on the floor, wearing gray clothing like hospital patients. Most looked thin and exhausted. None of them reacted when we entered. But Emily did. She stood near the back wall, staring directly at us, and the second Chloe ran toward her. "Ow!" Emily screamed. "Get away from me!" Her voice cracked with pure terror. Then she pointed toward Marcus behind us. "No cameras!" she whispered desperately. "Please! They'll see us." Emily looked nothing like herself anymore. The girl standing in front of us barely resembled the person from school photos and old videos. Her hair was messy and uneven, like she had cut parts of it herself. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. Her hand. Trembled constantly, and every few seconds she glanced nervously toward the ceiling corners of the room, like she expected something to crawl out of the shadows above us. Chloe stopped moving immediately. After Emily screamed, "It's me," Chloe whispered carefully. "Emily, we came to get you out." Emily's breathing slowed slightly, but the fear in her eyes didn't disappear. She kept staring at Marcus's camera. "Turn it off," she whispered again. "Please." Dom Marcus immediately lowered the camera and powered it down without arguing. The second the screen went black, Emily visibly relaxed for the first time since we found her. That alone terrified me more than anything else underground. So far, why was she so afraid of being recorded? The other people inside the dormitory room still hadn't reacted much to our presence. There were maybe 8 or 9 of them sitting silently on beds or against the walls. Some looked old. Others looked barely older than us. Most stared blankly at the floor, like they were mentally exhausted. A few quietly whispered to themselves nonstop. One older woman kept repeating the same sentence over and over under her breath. "It watches through the lights." Daniel leaned closer to Emily carefully. "Who are these people?" Emily swallowed hard before answering. "The ones who stayed too long." Nobody understood what she meant. Then one of the lights overhead flickered violently. Every person in the room instantly looked upward at the exact same moment. Panic spread across their faces immediately. One man slid off his bed and covered his head with his hands. Another woman started crying softly into the corner. Emily stepped backward quickly. "We have to keep moving," she whispered urgently. "If the lights go out completely, it starts moving again." The way she said it made my stomach tighten instantly. Marcus frowned. "What starts moving?" Emily looked directly at him for several seconds before answering. The observer. Silence filled the room. Even the people sitting against the walls stopped whispering for a moment after hearing that name. Daniel tried keeping his voice calm. "Emily, what is the observer?" Emily shook her head slowly. "I don't think they know anymore." That answer only made things worse. Before anyone could ask more questions, the overhead speaker system crackled loudly again. Static burst through the quad. "Room so hard, it made several people cover their ears." Then came the same robotic female voice from earlier. "Containment breach expanding beyond Sector 12. Pause. Observation protocol active. The second those words played, every person inside the dormitory panicked at once. People scrambled off beds. One man started screaming uncontrollably, while another began desperately pushing furniture against the room door. Emily grabbed Chloe's arm hard enough to hurt her. "We have to leave now." There was something genuinely horrifying about the fear in her voice. This wasn't paranoia anymore. Everyone in that room reacted like they already knew what was coming. The lights flickered again. The lights flickered again. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the hallway outside went completely dark. We heard footsteps, almost immediately, slow footsteps, heavy, calm, coming from somewhere beyond the dormitory room. Every person inside froze silent. Even the crying stopped. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. The only sound left was the steady echo of those footsteps moving closer through the hallway outside. "Step, step, step," Marcus whispered. "Is that security?" Emily's face turned pale. "No," she whispered. "Don't look at it if you see it." That answer made no sense at all, but none of us had time to question her, because the footsteps suddenly stopped directly outside the room. The lights overhead buzzed weakly. Then something slowly scraped across the metal door outside. A long, scratching sound, like fingernails dragging across steel. Chloe covered her mouth, trying not to cry, while Daniel gripped the rusted flashlight so tightly, his knuckles turned white. Marcus looked ready to bolt at any second. Then came another noise. A voice! Soft, calm, familiar. "Chloe?" Chloe's eyes widened instantly. It sounded exactly like her mother. Same voice, same tone. "Chloe, sweetheart." "Open the door." Every person inside the room started panicking again. One woman began screaming, "Don't answer it!" over and over while covering her ears. Another person shoved themselves under one of the beds, shaking violently. The voice outside continued calmly. The voice outside continued calmly. "You're scared, I know. But you don't belong down there." Chloe looked completely frozen. Tears filled her eyes because the voice was perfect, identical. Then Emily leaned close to her and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "It copies people." The scratching sound returned outside the room. Slower now, patient. Marcus whispered, "How is that possible?" Emily shook her head again. The experiments changed after a while. They thought isolation was causing hallucinations. But the hallucinations started appearing on cameras too. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "You're saying there's actually something down here?" Emily looked toward the dark hallway beyond the room entrance. "I saw it watching us through the observation glass 3 nights ago," she whispered. "It learns by listening." The overhead lights dimmed again. The room became darker, and from somewhere deep inside the bunker, alarms suddenly started blaring. Loud, violent. Red emergency lights began spinning across the corridors outside, while the robotic voice repeated the same sentence endlessly through the speakers. "Level 4 breach detected. Level 4 breach detected. Level 4 breach detected." Then the screaming started. Not nearby, far away, somewhere deeper underground. Multiple people screaming at once. The sounds echoed horribly through the bunker halls, before suddenly cutting off all at once. Silence followed. "Company!" Complete silence. Then came another sound much closer. Running footsteps. Fast. Somebody sprinting toward the dormitory room. Through the dark hallway outside. The figure slammed into the doorway. A second later, an old man in a damaged military uniform stumbled inside, gasping for breath. It was the same man we saw earlier on the security monitor. Up close, he looked even worse. His skin appeared pale and sickly under the flashing red lights. Dark veins spread across his neck. His eyes looked bloodshot from exhaustion. He immediately slammed the door shut behind him. They opened the lower sectors. He gasped. "You kids shouldn't be here." Daniel stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" The old man ignored the question completely. He looked directly at Emily instead. "You brought them back?" Emily's face filled with guilt instantly. The old man shook his head slowly. Then it already knows every one of their voices. Nobody spoke after the old man said that. The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. Outside the dormitory, the bunker alarms continued echoing through the underground halls while red emergency lights flashed across the walls like slow pulses. Every face in. The room looked terrified now, including the old man's. Whatever was happening down there, he already knew how bad it could get. Daniel finally stepped forward. "What is this thing?" The old man wiped sweat from his forehead with shaking hands before answering. At first, they thought it was psychological, he whispered. "That's what the program was built for. Fear conditioning, isolation experiments, sensory manipulation." He looked toward the ceiling cameras nervously before continuing. But after a while, the subjects started reporting the same figure. Nobody interrupted him. They described someone standing behind observation glass, tall, thin, always watching. At first, the scientists assumed the patients were hallucinating from stress. He swallowed hard. Then, staff members started seeing it too. The room stayed silent, except for the alarms outside. Marcus frowned. "So what? This place is haunted?" The old man immediately shook his head. "Number? That would have been easier." That answer hit harder than I expected. Emily sat down slowly against the wall, looking exhausted. They kept studying it instead of shutting the bunker down. She whispered, "That's when people..." started disappearing. Chloe stared at her in disbelief. "Why didn't you tell anybody?" Emily looked like she wanted to cry. "I tried." Then she explained everything. 3 weeks earlier, Emily had entered Black Ridge Forest searching for proof about the bunker after finding old journals belonging to her grandfather. He used to work security underground during the final years of the project. Before he died, he warned her never to go near Sector 12 because something learned how to imitate people. At first, Emily thought he was mentally unstable from old age. But after finding maps hidden in his attic, she became obsessed with discovering the truth. That's how she found the bunker entrance. And once she went inside, they didn't let her leave. The old man finally introduced himself as Walter. He claimed he was one of the last surviving staff members still trapped underground after the facility shut down years ago. According to him, the military abandoned the project after too many unexplained deaths. But some workers stayed behind trying to contain whatever existed below level 4. Then Walter said something that made my stomach drop. "The bunker doesn't keep people inside," he whispered. "It keeps that thing from getting out." At first, nobody reacted because the sentence felt too insane to process. Then the lights flickered again, and from somewhere nearby in the hallway outside came Marcus's voice. "Guys!" Every person in the room froze instantly. Marcus was standing right beside us. Slowly, all of us turned toward the dark hallway outside the dormitory entrance. The voice came again, closer this time, calm, friendly. "Guys, where are you?" Marcus looked completely horrified beside me because it sounded exactly like him. Every detail perfect, same tone, same breathing pattern. Walter immediately whispered, "Don't answer." The footsteps outside stopped directly beside the doorway. Nobody moved. Then another voice echoed from the hallway. This time, it was Daniel's. I found the exit. Daniel backed away from the doorway, so fast he nearly tripped over one of the beds. His face had gone completely white now. Emily covered her ears tightly. "It does that. when it's close. The hallway outside remained dark, except for the flashing red emergency lights. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then slowly, a shadow moved past the DE. Always, not walking normally, too tall. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. As it crossed the corridor outside, none of us saw it clearly, but the shape alone was enough to trigger panic throughout the room. One woman started sobbing uncontrollably, while another buried her face against the wall, whispering prayers. Then the voice came again, this time using Chloe's voice. "Please help me." The Chloe started shaking immediately. Tears rolled down her face while she stared toward the doorway. The voice sounded terrified now, hurt, like someone begging for rescue. Walter grabbed her shoulder hard. "That isn't your friend anymore." The sentence hit the room like ice water. Chloe slowly turned toward Emily. "What does he mean?" Emily looked away. And that's when we finally understood the truth. Emily had not escaped the bunker earlier. She had been released. Walter explained that the thing below level 4 didn't attack people immediately. It observed them first, studied them, learned their voices, memories, behaviors. Then it used fear to drive them deeper underground, until they eventually stopped resisting. The subjects thought they were hiding from it. Walter whispered.
But really, it was guiding them.
Marcus stared at Emily in horror. "It let you leave?" Emily nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "I thought I escaped." Nobody knew what to say after that. Then Walter revealed the worst part. "The moment you followed her signal into the forest," he said quietly, "it got exactly what it wanted." Daniel whispered. "What does it want?" Walter looked toward the ceiling cameras again. New voices. The lights suddenly went out completely. Pitch darkness swallowed the room instantly. People screamed. Beds slammed against walls. Somewhere nearby, glass shattered loudly. Then the emergency backup lights activated weakly. And Emily was gone. Chloe screamed her name immediately, while Marcus swung the flashlight wildly across the room. The dormitory door now stood wide open. Cold air drifted inside from the dark hallway beyond. Footprints led away from the room. Bare footprints. Fresh. Walter cursed under his breath. It took her back downstairs. Then we heard Emily's voice echo softly through the bunker speakers overhead. Not screaming, laughing, a calm, distorted laugh that slowly turned into static, one by one, every minute. Or, inside the dormitory, suddenly turned back on by themselves. Grainy security footage filled the screens. Different hallways, different rooms, different levels underground. And, standing motionless in every single camera feed, was the same tall shadow figure, watching, waiting. Then, all the screens changed at the same time to a live camera feed showing the bunker entrance far above in the forest. The massive steel doors were slowly opening outward into the night. Walter stared at the screen in complete horror. "No," he whispered. "The lockdown was never meant to keep us inside." Then the speakers crackled one final time, and using Emily's exact voice, the bunker calmly announced, "Observation complete.